Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland. I'm your host, Chauncey Hallworth, and this is my co-host, Sean.
Hello.
How's it going, Sean?
Not bad. It's Pride Week here in Reading, for some reason, even though everywhere else it was Pride Week way back in June, but here in September for some reason.
We're behind the times.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. In more ways than one.
Well, to be fair, even a week ago, it was unbearably hot.
That is true. I don't know what that has to do with Pride.
Well, who wants to go outside?
That is true. But this week it's been nice, so who even knows? But I did go to one of the celebration-ish things on Saturday. It was sort of a lonely affair. But, I mean, you know me, I'm naturally skittish and afraid of crowds and strangers. Right. So I was just kind of like, why am I here? Why did I do
So was
this?
the crowd not impressive?
I mean, there was a handful.
There was
crossing the Sundial Bridge. I understand that the big event is on Saturday, so that's...
This coming up Saturday.
I see.
The closing ceremonies.
Right. I think the opening ceremonies were perhaps not as impressive. I don't even own any rainbow clothing, so
Good. You know,
they said wear rainbow, and I'm like,
yeah.
But my wardrobe is mostly black.
Yeah, mine too. Mine too. You know,
Can we have a goth pride? Like, that would be...
Totally. Well, actually, we can, and this is something that I was about to bring up. So I'm watching the news the other day, and they're talking about how it was an eventful week in Washington, D.C., that there was rebellions and people speaking and people gathering on lawns supporting things they care about.
Mm-hmm.
As is normally the case.
Sure, it's Washington.
But this time, apparently the FBI have put juggalos on their list of gangs.
Yes, I heard about that.
And so there was a big rally with hundreds of people, juggalos.
Right.
In Washington,
D.C. Using the term people loosely here.
Right.
We're talking about juggalos, but yeah.
Yeah, so...
Beings.
I have to say that I find the idea of juggalos as being a gang, a dangerous gang, to be...
I mean, that's comical.
Comical, yes. That's a very good term, yeah. Yeah, so I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. For those of you who don't know what a juggalo is a fan of the Insane Clown Posse.
Yes.
And so whenever you see those kids wearing black pants that are way too big for them, with their shirts with the graphics water pipe guy on it, and, some
face
sort of
paint.
Clown paint,
yeah,
that's a juggalo.
Terrible soda, sometimes.
Terrible soda?
I understand that has something to do with it.
What, like Big Red or Fanta or something?
Like Faygo.
Oh, Fuego. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know how to say it because we don't have it here.
I see.
In California. But I understand that it's just this horrible orange drink that for some reason is popular with juggalos.
Huh.
I don't know. You'll have to,
I'm going to have to look into this.
Fact checkers
yeah, totally.
who are on standby for this show, please work furiously to determine the veracity.
Right. We do have a couple of juggalos here locally. I see them every once in a while.
Yeah. I'm sure they're fine people.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't know what to say. I question their employment, I guess.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's a new age. If you work on the internet, no one knows that you're running.
That's true. I work on the internet.
You could be a juggalo and it probably wouldn't affect your life.
Well, I'm bearded and hairy and wear a lot of black. I'm basically,
right, you just
clown makeup away
the
from...
face paint, pretty much.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. So that's true. So tonight's guest, we have a psychic.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to say the last name here. Dr. Lauren Cielo.
Lauren Cielo.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm just not sure about that last name. We're going to have to...
Yeah, we're going to have to... If we were psychics, we wouldn't get this wrong, but sadly, we are not.
Ain't that the truth. And so I got to, I really want to know the difference. We're always discussing the differences between psychics and mediums and past life regression.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we find that they're dabblers.
Usually, yeah.
in kind of all things. But Dr. Cielo, let's call him Dr. Lauren.
Okay.
In the meantime, seems to be fairly well educated and established, and so we should get an interesting, more clinical answer. I'm kind of hoping about where these lines are drawn.
Clinical psychics.
Well, sure. I mean,
I suppose it is therapeutic, but the term clinical often comes with images of, a bunch of certifications hanging on your wall saying...
Well, that's why I used it, actually.
Does he have a...
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
It's just also psychic.
I don't know if they're hanging on the wall.
Yeah. Well, they have to be. It's an office.
Right.
You always see that. I would just wonder if he has, like, a piece of paper that's like, the state of California certifies Dr. Cielo as a psychic.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes here, so I can cover another interesting topic. My wife got a new job.
All right.
And she had to get vaccinations in order to work with kids. She's basically going to be working with teenage mothers, helping them to become mothers and know what to do.
I can hear a large portion of our audience gnawing furiously on their arms to
Why is that?
Make it through this segment. Well, because a lot of them are anti-vaccine people.
Oh, well, yeah, but so I always get vaccinated because my wife shouldn't really get vaccinations. She had a reaction to the flu shot and has been scared to get vaccinations ever since. So she goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, she tells him, I want vaccinations. And the doctor says, well, okay, you can get vaccinations. It's no problem. It's not going to hurt you. And she's scared, and she says, okay, fine. And she goes down to the nurse to get the vaccinations, and the nurse says, after looking at your paperwork, we can't give you the vaccinations. And so my wife's just like, okay, so you won't give me the letter that says that I don't have to get vaccinated, but you also won't give me the vaccinations.
Medical limbo.
Medical limbo, you know.
It's one of the worst places to be.
And so eventually, after literally hours, tens of hours of figuring this out, she finally got her doctor to give her vaccinations without preservatives in them that are supposedly reserved for pregnant people.
Interesting.
And so far, so good. But I just thought that our audience might find that a little interesting, that here we are with this vaccination situation. You know, she couldn't get the job without the vaccinations. She couldn't get the paperwork to not get the vaccinations, but they wouldn't give her the vaccination.
Honestly, that is, you know, trying to accomplish anything having to do with healthcare is like that. You know, there's always a significant chance of slipping through some bureaucratic crack in the system, and then, you know, you're in medical limbo forever, which is considerably worse than regular limbo, so I've heard.
Yeah, totally. Regular limbo has healthcare.
Exactly.
All right. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back. And welcome back to Radio Wasteland, and we are here with our guest, Dr. Lauren Cielo. Am I saying that correctly?
You are. Very well done.
All right. We had a big discussion about this, and we joke on a regular basis that as hosts, our number one homework that we need to do is figure out how to pronounce the guest's last name correctly.
Which we rarely do, frankly.
Well, thank you. You hit it right on. It's great to be here. Thanks.
All right. So let's start with the, the typical questions I'm sure you get asked on a regular basis. You know, how did you get started or figure out... Well, I don't know. That's kind of a weird question because I know that you teach classes on becoming a psychic also, but how did being a psychic start for you?
Well, I realized, maybe about 10 years into my engineering career that on Saturday and Sunday I was not engineering. I was running through the forest naked under the full moons howling. I was trying to, looking back, what I think I was trying to do is I was trying to have a spiritual experience here on Earth. So I did all kinds of things, and it wasn't until I was 44 that I'm 55 now, so about 11 years ago, I finally found a psychic institute here in San Diego where I live, and I'd never heard of such a thing. Well, I decided to take the training, and, there was 2 years of training, but I got laid off from my engineering job about 2 months into that program, and I don't know what possessed me, but I decided I would try to be a psychic. So I went over to the little local acupuncturist here in my little area of San Diego and asked if I could rent a little spot, and I did. And, people who would likely get an acupuncture treatment might also get a psychic reading. So that's how I started. And I created my own business, Golden Rose Psychic Services, here in San Diego. And it did start out local. I mean, I actually had a brick and mortar place, but I quickly realized that my footprint was much bigger than just San Diego. So I really don't have a brick and mortar now. I do, most of my stuff is, via internet and international now. So, and I have to say that the technique that I learned, it is very left-brained. I'm the most logic psychic that I know, and I'm very pragmatic. I'm very skeptical. Even in the readings, if you got a reading from me, you'll hear me. I do this thing, I call it reverse engineer the reading. So here comes some information, and I do my best to try to communicate it and interpret it. But then I always think, well, how's that going to help someone? I mean, if somebody told me that in a psychic reading, how could that possibly help me? So I do ground the information into the earth plane quite solidly as an engineer. So I guess I kind of call myself a psychic, but I'm definitely a tech nerd all the way. And that's why I was able to create my platforms. I do all the designing of my 2 websites by myself, Lauren Cielo and GoldenRosePsychic.com. So it's completely fulfills me. Isn't that silly?
Well, no, this is actually kind of new for us. So until you went, so my understanding is that you were somewhat lost, looking for something in life. I mean, you were taking care of yourself, but you were kind of spiritually lost, looking for something more. And you stumbled across this, and you found that you enjoyed it, and that you had an affinity for it, and you pursued it, right?
Correct.
So when you were younger, prior to this, did you have any inkling that you were capable of being psychic?
Oh, no. My favorite game as a kid was war. If I shot you and you didn't lay down and die, I would come over and try to hit you to make you lay down. I was very much raised with my older brother. I'm, very much into the sciences in school, and then also very much an athlete. So no psychic, zero. This is how embarrassing it was. So when I went to my school, I was there with people in a room, right? And at the breaks, the water cooler conversations, somebody would say, oh, I saw fairies when I was 3. And somebody else said, oh, my grandfather, when he passed, he came to me at 5, and I told my family that he had passed. I had nothing like that. Nothing. Zero. No, zero.
So this is something I commonly ask psychics and mediums, if it's something that people are more prone to be, or if it's something they're born with, or if it's something that can be taught. And in your case, you're definitely saying that it's something that can be taught.
You know what I think it is I think that we're all, of course, receiving so much information from our chakras, psychically from our chakras. And because the only body that we've ever been in any one incarnation is the one you're in, so you may not realize how much information you're getting from your chakras. If I could pull you out of you and jump into your body, I might go, oh my gosh, I'm getting all this data from these chakras because I'm formally trained, because I went step by step by step. And if I wouldn't have had somebody show me that intellectually, like, Lauren, when you have this experience as a human, this is what it metaphysically really is. And so I started to be able to put together, I guess maybe a good way to say it is, I became so much more aware of what was going on around me. And so we're all psychic. It's just that just think about this. What if I were to tell a child, oh, I can walk, but you'll never walk. All the rest of us walk, but you cannot walk. So don't believe you can. So guess what would happen? You would slither around on your belly for your whole life because somebody told you that your body cannot walk. Well, what I do is I train people how to use their chakras to read energy, and that's what being a psychic is.
You know, I've actually often thought this because I myself am a bit skeptical about just about everything. I'm obviously interested in all these things as well, or I wouldn't be doing the show. But when it comes, I think that at the core of anything that ends up being true, there's science, and so I've thought in the case of psychics that it's maybe somewhat influenced by talent and athletic prowess kind of comparison. But bottom line is we're all capable of learning to shoot a basketball. You get what I'm saying? It's like, and so I've actually started to dabble in this a little bit. Because I'm very high stress and I can't relax and I can't think about anything other than running. So I've started to try to do mindful meditation. My end all goal is to try to do something more than that, but I'm having a hard time tying down just even the mindful meditation I'm having a hard time doing.
Yeah, you know, one of the reasons why I think at first it's so challenging is because really our energy fields are saturated. If, by the time you get to be 50, like I said, I'm 55, if I wouldn't have had some way to actively move energy, and I'm not just saying meditation. I mean, I did it through sports. You can do it through dancing, even, sex, whatever, really.
However you find the zone, however you find that.
Right. So, I think it's interesting what you said about science being like, you have to find science in things before you can really buy into them. And that's why I think an engineer can move to be a psychic, because the way our technology has advanced, it is so easy for me to communicate to my students the way I see the universe. Let's go back 55 years before I was born, and let's say that I was to try to convince you that this life isn't real. It's like a video game, only you don't know what a video game is. You don't have any idea of a virtual reality, so there's no way you can understand how the universe works. Well, now our technology and our spirituality, they're increasing together. So it's so easy to take the scientific metaphysical or the scientific models and push them into the metaphysics. So I could never communicate to you a lot of the things I see in readings unless you were technical.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's one thing that I've really kind of been amazed about some of psychic stuff, religious stuff, and how they've started to actually kind of come in line a little bit with science, and science has started to take another look at these things that it kind of dismissed for quite a while, and has started to take them into consideration, especially on a physics level.
I think a lot of scientists now take the idea that the universe is a simulation of some kind quite seriously.
So.
Yeah. And without, Einstein and Einstein's thought experiments, right? You might want to, if you have never heard of, I really love Einstein, so I talk a lot about these quote unquote thought experiments that he did. Well, it's really astral projecting. One of them, he tried to see what it would be like to travel at the speed of light. Well, he was, trying to figure out E equals MC squared. So he projected himself into that. He would call it a thought experiment, but no, it was astral projecting. And quantum physics, see, the thing about quantum physics, the baffling thing that I talk to my students about a lot, is that the observed particle changes just because it knows it's being observed. And if you want to Google that, you might Google double slit theory and look for the little Einstein character. You watch that little video.
Waves.
Yeah. And so when I look at you clairvoyantly, you change because somebody is witnessing the particles of you. And in the teaching of Golden Rose, any kind of shift is a healing. So just by me looking at you, you'll have a healing. You'll change. So now it's really easy to put science and metaphysics together because quantum physics does it.
All right. Well, we're coming up on our very first commercial break. Your listening to Radio Wasteland with our guest, Dr. Lauren Cielo. Come on back. All right, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Dr. Lauren Cielo. We've talked to several psychics and mediums, and we feel that there's kind of this blur point where we're not really sure, what does being a psychic mean to you? Is that just reading people? Is it communicating with people who have passed? What is being a psychic to you?
Well, I think I would define being a psychic as reading energy with your chakras. And that's really what I go with on the basic. Now, of course, it depends on which chakra you're reading with, as to, obviously the 6 chakras, your clairvoyance, so you see image and color. Your throat, if you're reading with your throat, you'll hear either telepathically or clairaudiently. So it just kind of depends on which chakra you're using, but I would define being psychic as using your chakras to read. It's like having more sensory organs. Besides the 5 that our physical body has, we also have the 7 that the energy body has, the 7 chakras.
I see. So that would include communicating with people who have passed?
To me, that would, if you saw them, then it's clairvoyance. If you're listening to what they're saying, then it's clairaudience, and it can happen both at once. So I don't really break it out, to say a medium is someone who talks to the dead. A clairvoyant is someone who, they're kind of subcategories of one another. So, yeah, what I would say, a person who's died, it's the very same way as reading a spirit guide, because the only difference between a dead person and a spirit guide is how long they've been out of body. Like my main guide, Ankaijia, he's incarnated many times, but he doesn't consider himself a dead person because he's been out of body so long. Of course, it's almost what they'll say. So if you talk to somebody that's recently out of body, they're going to talk about their life. If you talk to Ankaijia, who's this ancient soul, he's going to talk about Egypt.
So this one's actually kind of new to me. The spirit guide. This is, you would think, something that I would have heard of in my readings of this, but in just the past couple of years, this is something that I've really caught on the regular basis. Can you explain to us what a spirit guide is?
Yeah. I would think that would be a layman's term for these beings. Now, there's beings with bodies, and that would be me and you and Sean, and then there's beings without bodies, like all of your guides and angels and all of my guides and angels, and of course Sean's too. So the only difference is having a body and not having a body. One of the interesting things is I don't think people realize is a lot of the beings without bodies that we work with, we don't know we work with. And that can be a huge problem. Like, let's say I'm competing. So I have a competition guide that's going to plug into my 3rd chakra, and you're not going to win. You're not going to win. But now I'm in an engineering conference with the VP of engineering, and that being plugs into my 3rd chakra, and I say something really stupid to my boss. So a lot of the work, and I'm working with a client, is we cancel those contracts with those beings that you're channeling without knowing it. And they can have you do things that you don't choose to do if the contracts get too out of present time. But mostly, people would consider spirit guides to be friendly beings without bodies that you sign contracts with to help you do stuff here on Earth. Well, some beings without bodies don't even come to Earth. They don't even see the Earth plane. They would never be able to get you a parking place.
So when you say sign contracts, that as me, Chauncey, I might not know that my spiritual self has signed a contract, and signed a contract is a purely tangible term to put on this, I'm sure, with a spirit guide. Yeah,
the idea of free will, it's almost in every religious theory or idea that you can come up with. Usually every religion has this idea of free will. Well, it doesn't feel like free will here on Earth, right? If your boss tells you to jump, you're going to say how high. So where the free will resides is on the astral with our higher selves signing the contracts. You might think of those contracts as scripts. nothing can happen here on the earth plane unless it's scripted in by those contracts. And your higher self can take its name off of a contract anytime it wants, or put its name on one. And you can't force anybody else to do it either. So that's where free will lives.
So we don't all necessarily have a spirit guide.
I would say you probably have hundreds. Everyone. Hundreds. Yeah.
I see. So they're basically the mentors and the people that we communicate with when we are outside of our physical body. And I, as Chauncey, I may not know that I'm doing this, but I probably am doing this.
Probably a lot of them talk to you in your stream of consciousness. So it is here on Earth. And not all of the beings without bodies that you might have contracts with, not all of them are here to help you. Some of those contracts that you have with them are to help them. Like they may be thinking about incarnating, and so they have a contract with you so they kind of watch you and, see what life is all about. So not all of your guides are senior to you. As a matter of fact, I instruct my students to be senior to our guides. Think of yourself as the business owner, and they're the consultants. So I consult them, I ask each of their opinion on something, and then I decide. Me.
Given Sean and I's day job, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, you picked a very good analogy for us.
Because Sean works at a business and I'm a consultant there.
Right. Yeah, I think technically I'm a contractor. So.
Oh, you're a contractor now. Yeah,
so I'm a spirit guide now.
Right.
Cloud potential.
So you teach people, you have students. What does this look like when you're teaching them? What is that like for them?
Well,
what can one expect when they come to you, I guess?
Yeah. Right when I first started, someone came to me, right when I started reading, they came to me and they said, "Hey, I heard that you were trained to be psychic." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, would you train me?" And I was like, "Yes." So I, wrote out all my curriculum and decided how I wanted to format all the information. And then a lot of people heard about it here in San Diego, and they would call me up and they'd say, "Hey, I'd love to take your class." And I said, "Great, it's this night, it's at this time, it's at this place, and it costs this much." And more times than not, they would say, "Gosh, I'd love to take your class, but..." And I didn't like what came after the buts. So I spent quite some time, probably 5-6 years, figuring out a way to deliver the information, and you can't say anything after the word "but," except, "I'm just not ready to take your classes yet." That's right. The only thing you might be able to say, because I'll work with you one-on-one. Whatever you want to learn to be clairvoyant, clairaudient, you want to read the dead, you want to read past lives, you can book a couple sessions and learn to do that. You can download everything. There's 44 psychic classes on my website. They start at $9.99. That same information I teach live in phone classes using a conferencing program, and people all over the world are in my classes. I have somebody in Seoul, Korea, that gets up at 3 in her morning to attend those 2-hour phone classes. So, it's really cool to see all these different cultures coming together to learn to be psychic.
Interesting. So do you find that these different cultures have a different idea of what it means to be psychic? Because, in Seoul, they're not dealing, a lot of the times, the term angel and demon and these things are totally foreign to them.
Well, even the term chakra is a culturally specific one, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sean, could you say that again?
Well, even the term, chakra is a culturally specific one, right?
Right.
Indian.
Yeah, I would think that usually by the time they get into a big 6-month clairvoyant program with Dr. Lauren Cielo, they are pretty much spiritually on board. There's not a lot of what I would call pictures to blow on that. They're pretty much on board by that time. But I'll tell you what is different about all the cultures. Their chakra systems. Like folks who are raised in maybe more heart chakra based cultures where family is more important than individuals, these people you'll see will have a hard time kind of letting go of that programming and really busting out on their own. And I will say that once you start clairvoyantly reading yourself, which of course we do, if you want to read somebody else, you need to know where you end and they start. So we start by reading ourselves. Well, there are things that you'll release that you've been programmed to do or not do that are in the way of being psychic. So I would say that the different cultures have different pictures to blow through, but they don't seem to be really religiously based. Because again, by the time they're going to pay for my class, they've done a lot of research and they probably heard me on a lot of different shows and have a pretty good idea of my scope.
Right. Okay, well, we're coming up on a commercial break here. You're listening to Dr. Lauren Cielo on Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Dr. Lauren Cielo. I always do this. I'm a horror movie fan, Dr. Lauren.
Yeah.
And so you clear energies, and so... Are there evil energies?
No, I'm sorry. I hate to. You can go ahead and be afraid all you want of it, but so I don't see positive and negative energy. I came from engineering, so some circuits use a positive 5 volts, and some applications would use a negative 5 volts. But it's just what each circuit needs. So, but I'll tell you the two energies that I do see. And it's not good or bad or positive or negative. It's you and not you. So that's one of the big causes of dis-ease in our space is really running from someone else's information. And I can tell right away because if I'm clairvoyantly looking at you and somebody else's information's in your space or energy, it's black. So it sticks out like a sore thumb. So, and think of it this way. I'll go to the Judas-Jesus contract. If you'd like to think that Judas was evil, well, let's go back to the astral, and let's say that you're going to incarnate in some fake reality, and you want to be a messiah. You want to fulfill some prophecy, but you have to be kissed, and somebody's got to get gold, right? So you're like, okay, I'm getting ready to incarnate. I'm going to be this messiah, but I can't be unless somebody signs a contract to be Judas. And so who do you think is going to sign that contract? It's going to be one of the souls that loves you the most because it's going to be the most hated person in that reality so you can be one of the most loved people. So I would say this, enemies on earth are lovers on the astral. You love so much that you whatever might seem non-beneficial, but no evil.
Well, how about dangers? Is it, so here in the physical realm, we have, if I'm walking out in the woods and a pack of wolves eat me, they're not evil. They are just fulfilling their natural situation, but it's dangerous. Dangerous.
Right. Yeah. It's just contracts. And I would say that if you put yourself in a position where you were in the forest and you were chased by these wolves and you wanted to know what it was like to run from wild beasts and live, and if you didn't live, then that would be your exit strategy. And you just contracted in to go that way instead of on the freeway.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this. You're saying that all of reality is basically the playing out of the decisions through free will that we prior made, and so everything that basically happens was a choice on our parts to put ourselves in that situation.
I think you just about got it, but it's not from before. It's in real time. So our contracts are changing with every beat of our heart. We can change whatever we want. So it's not, of course, some of our contracts were created before we were born, like our parents. But,
right.
Yeah, but mostly we change on the fly. And I'm going to tell you, I think this is going to be one of my next books. I've been really, really asking myself and my guides, why was my life so hard before? And why is it so incredibly easy now? And the only thing I can come up with is that I am no longer in resistance to the contracts that my higher self is signing. I was not raised, well, let me flip that. I was raised to be a heterosexual woman, to be a Christian, and to, have a white-collar job. And I'm none of those things. I don't do any of those things. But I tried, and I was miserable. So often, by releasing the programming and getting out of your own way, and you'll know if you're programmed to do something, then because you'll want to do it and you'll be afraid. That's how you know. It's like, gosh, I have this desire, but I'm so afraid. So that's how you know you're in resistance to your higher self. And what we do, it's really easy. Just do energy work. Release the programming. Release the black, other people's information so that you can have your lifetime.
Well, I definitely think I need to read that book or take that class because I think I am in serious opposition to my higher self. I am chronically dissatisfied and I'm a generally miserable individual, I must say.
That's how I was, and I thought that's what life was. From looking at my people, you just hunker down. My folks, my family, generations of you just hunker down and wait for your life to be over. That's what you do. No, that's not what I'm doing. Not anymore. No, if I have a desire, I am gonna pursue it. And obviously, I've blown through a lot of those stereotypes that I put on myself, from my society. And now, like I said, things are easier than they ever have been. My friends say, you should figure a way to bottle what you've done and you'd sell 1 million six-packs of it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm trying to teach other people.
Yeah. Throw some alcohol and caffeine in there also, and
yeah.
Well, and in that pursuit to really get the information out, we set up a page on one of our websites just for your listeners, and it's really easy. It's laurencielo.com. I'm the only Lauren Cielo on the planet, and then it's /Radio Wasteland, all one word. So laurencielo.com, Radio Wasteland, and I'll tell you what, you can tell the things that I do that heal me at Golden Rose because they're free. So if you go to that page, you will get hooked up with all of our free meditations. My students who are creating their own businesses now will read you for free. My advanced students will heal you. It's free healing requests. You won't get communication, but there's 90 meditations that I've done on all topics. It's all free. Lots of radio episodes that I've done on my own radio shows. So, yeah, laurencielo.com/Radio Wasteland.
All right, and we're coming up on the end of the show here, so why don't you give any other information on how people can find out about you? You said you had 2 websites.
Yeah, the other one is goldenrosepsychic.com. Of course, you have to know how to spell psychic to get to that one, and it took me a while, but I think I finally got it down. You might also check me out on Gaia. I've done some stuff with George Norrie and then also Regina Meredith. So you might want to check, if you're subscribed to Gaia, you might want to check me out there.
Well, I'm definitely going to check this stuff out because, like I said, I've been trying this mindful meditation and, I feel like I've dabbled with the zone, but I haven't quite got to the zone, but it was the first time I ever actually laid back and was listening to something with my eyes closed where I didn't feel like falling asleep. That was like a first for me. So I know that might seem weird, but I work really hard and I'm tired all the time. And for me to actually relax without trying to fall asleep was actually kind of amazing for me.
Excellent.
But I have really enjoyed talking to you. And, man, this time just flew by. You were a whole lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Chauncey and Sean. And I'll be happy to come back anytime you want me to. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to Dr. Lauren Cielo on Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. You have been listening to our guest, Dr. Lauren Cielo. What did you think of that guest?
I thought that was a lot different than our other psychic interviews.
Yeah, very much so. He was very pragmatic, very...
Yeah.
I think he described himself very well.
Most of the psychics we talked to were pragmatic, but a lot of them, when you delve into, like, the deeper theory, the few we talked to of, like, how does this work? They're just like, I don't... The responses we get almost seem to be like, it doesn't matter, it just helps people. It just works.
That's true.
But in this case, no, we got something very different. We got, the world is a simulation, it's everything set into motion by... causes on the astral plane and effects here and, chakras and all of that.
Right.
We got a very detailed description of the theory behind what he does. So.
This wasn't too far of a cry from a concept that I came up with. I don't know if it's fair to say that I came up with it, but I came up with it for myself.
Right.
As people are talking about free will and God knows everything and God's destiny for you, and they always seem to kind of clash.
Sure.
And so what I kind of thought of was like outside of the realm of time, when you first come into existence, you have free will and you've made all the choices that you're going to make in life. And then what we're experiencing now is time living out those choices that we made, allowing for destiny and free will at the same time.
I think that's a good concept. Honestly, I'm not the best person to bounce that off of, because I really don't spend a lot of time thinking about either destiny or free will. Like, I know it's a big question in a lot of people's theology, but it's just something I tend to bypass when I'm thinking about the universe. I just don't really think about it.
Right. So you're not much of a...
Well, I don't believe in God, and I also don't really believe in free will. So there's really no issue.
So wait, you don't believe in God or free will?
I believe in the laws of physics. I believe that we have the appearance of free will, and so for, all practical purposes we do, but I think whatever happens is just the result of chemical reactions that would be predictable if not for the darn uncertainty principle that means that they're not.
So what you're telling me is you're a romantic.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm getting at.
So does that mean
I
that
see the silver lining on every dirt cloud.
So does that mean that you don't believe in psychics?
No, not necessarily. I think there could, in theory, be... Look, I think physical laws work the way they work, and we know about that. I think there's plenty of stuff on the show that falls into the category of things we don't understand, right? If an alien comes to Earth and does something that seemingly violates our laws of physics, I wouldn't be like, that didn't happen. I'd be like, they're an alien, they probably have some crazy technology that operates based on, matter we can't even perceive, or laws of physics we don't even understand yet.
Sure.
Same thing with psychics, I assume it's just if it is a real thing, I assume it's just something we don't understand.
That's
that
what
doesn't
I was trying
mean,
to say.
General relativity isn't real or something. All the other physics is still there, and I believe the universe operates according to it, even though I don't particularly understand it that well.
That's what I was kind of trying to say, is that the core of it is some sort of science. Whether or not we understand it is irrelevant, but at the core there's some kind of science.
Right. I think, if you get deep down into any supernatural stuff, it becomes natural once you understand it. But
right.
Not that I'm on the fence about psychics, really. I'm on the fence about a couple of these topics. So I wouldn't really say I do or I don't at this point. I'm collating data.
All right, well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the end of the world. It's coming up soon. Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. At the end of the show, we like to talk about some news, and this time we got some big news. Sean, what's our news?
Yes, as the show draws to the close, I must sadly inform our listeners, with some small amount of regret, that the world also is drawing to a close as well.
How so?
Well, I'm glad you asked. There's a Christian conspiracy theorist named David Meade who believes that Nibiru is rapidly approaching, just, overtaking us as we speak, and it's going to kick off the beginning of the prophecies in the book of Revelation starting this Saturday. That was my reaction.
I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at the starting this Saturday. So,
right. So he didn't specifically say that the world would end this Saturday, but he said that, it's the beginning of the end, and that we'll start to see. He said that huge parts of the world will not be the same on Saturday. So, he is predicting cataclysm. So do feel free to throw eggs at his house if nothing happens on Saturday.
So
it's
basically Saturday for us is going to be, in his opinion, undeniable.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, it's not going to be...
Yeah, he hasn't left himself any wiggle room for the failure of this prophecy.
Oh.
You know, if it's September 24th and nothing's happened, he's got no choice but to change his name and move to Siberia, or more likely revise his prophecy and write another book.
Yeah, I think that latter one is going to happen. I wish I could remember the author. My friend Ben Bambauer, he's a very well-read guy. I don't know. Should I drop real names on this show? Doesn't matter. He owns a business. He owns Bog Beat. And he was telling me about this book, The Late Great Planet Earth, that gave a specific date that the world was going to end.
Sure.
And that date passed, and he revised it.
Yeah.
And Ben, owning a bookstore...
Got to keep up with the times.
Owning the bookstore had a collection, and he opened the book, and he showed me, here in this printing of the book, here's when the world's going to end, and he opens another one, and here's where it's going to end in this book.
Yeah, you know, this specific prediction is based on the idea that 33 is an important number in the Bible. You know, Jesus lived for 33 years. A bunch of other stuff happened that had to do with 33. I don't know, really. But 33 is a thing in the Bible. Christians will confirm, I guess. And so he said, okay, 33 days from the solar eclipse, which apparently is a symbol of it or something, and that's the end of the world.
I was raised Catholic, and my wife is a Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And I can guarantee you that if we were to say the number 33 to my wife, she would be all, I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, David Meade made it seem like it was a cornerstone of the religion, but I guess not, huh?
So do we have any sort of idea how many people are taking this seriously?
I think it's David Meade and his followers.
How many followers are we talking? Do we have any idea?
I think we're talking about several thousand people.
So we're talking like mega church.
Yeah.
Whew.
Enough for a number of news organizations to write articles about this. You know, I wrote about this in the Washington Post.
Yeah. Well, maybe next week we need to get Samuel Hoffman on here to tell us why this didn't happen.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Samuel Hoffman is necessarily on board with that the world will end on the 23rd. He was definitely on board with the Nibiru thing, and last we heard, you know, Nibiru was here and you can see it, right?
Right.
So that was a couple months ago. So
yeah, I just think it's really weird that these Christians are latching on to these things that
right
themselves are potentially fantasy, the sort of thing that would be considered heretical in the past.
Yeah, well, this particular prophecy has been roundly condemned by both astrophysicists and people of the cloth, basically. Well,
I love how you put things.
Okay.
Astrophysicists and people of the cloth.
Yes, not that astrophysicists don't wear cloth, but
right.
You know what I mean.
Totally.
Yeah, so one person said that I believe faculty at a Christian college of some kind said, you know, if someone claims to have found a secret numerical code in the Bible, run the other way.
Yeah.
You know, or just, you can safely discount anything they say after that.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah, well, that's what he said. And honestly, I feel like I'm being kind of hard on this theory, but that's only because I feel like it's flatly ridiculous. Like most of the stuff on this show, I feel like there's a little bit of wiggle room, and, you know, like ghosts, UFOs, psychic powers, all those things, I'm, like, verging unconvinced, really.
Right.
But this one, no. I don't think Nibiru's there. I think we would see it right now, you know, if it was anywhere or near us to be here on Saturday.
So basically, Nibiru destroying us by Saturday is a no, but Mothman is a maybe.
Lots of people saw Mothman. So, yes, Mothman is a maybe. I think Mothman is more credible than the world ending on Saturday. Though, if I'm wrong, you know, I'll just dissolve into a puddle of acid with everyone else. So, there's not much harm in making that prediction.
Yeah, I guess so. If the world ends on Saturday, boy, will my face be red. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. Thanks for checking us out.